What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is episode number 3 of the Just Win Baby podcast, brought to you by myself. My name is Liam, and I pick fights each and every week on this channel. It's also brought to you by this man, coming off a very good week. Rich, my brother, how are you? I know you had a very profitable outing at UFC 285. Gave away a lot of great information on the show last week. Happy to do it once again, brother. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. That's one way of putting at it. Awesome week, man. Cashed on John Jones, cashed on Grasso ITB, Grasso sub. And what else can I say, man? But I told you all, you wouldn't listen, would you? Another great week, man.
Yeah, man, the parlay buster last week, I believe closing line favorites ended up going 13 and 14 on the night. The only underdog that ends up coming through is the one that we tried to tell you, Alexa Grasso coming through, getting the sub. We talked about on this show, plus 600 underdog, 25-1 on that sub prop. Both of us mentioned as well. So just at the end of the day, very happy to come off of a great week, but the bookies will never pay you for the job that you did last week. So it's always right back to work for us. And as far as I'm concerned, not the greatest betting offering this week. Certainly not as many opportunities as there were last card, but I still think there's plenty to potentially work with here. So we'll see if we can align our cannons. But I know there's some fights that we may even have some dissension on this week. So excited to talk through those. But starting first, we have a short notice replacement bout here. Carlston Harris is taking on Jared Gooden, the Night Train. Second stint in the UFC for Jared Gooden. Did not end so well for him the first time out. But now we've got, a replacement for Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov. He was supposed to be in this fight at 170 pounds. Carlston Harris, man, he's pretty old for the division. That was the one thing that really stood out to me. He's about 35 years of age here. Jared Gooden, he's no prize, right? I think that he's a tough fighter. I think he's got a lot of skills. He's not always won the fights on the regional scene that mattered. He's not always won the fights in the UFC that mattered. And I believe Abu Bakr was the one who actually put a jab clinic on him when he was in the UFC. So, he's replacing a guy that really beat him up when they got after it. But I think that in this fight, both men are going to be live for the knockout when this fight's on the feet. Jared Gooden throws with a lot of power, a lot of intention. Carlston Harris has shown he could be hurt, he could be dropped, he could be finished. That knockout against Shavkat was horrifying. But Shavkat hits tremendously hard. He hits with a lot of power. So I think that this is a winnable fight for Carlston Harris. I think his submission game could come into play as well. Extremely dangerous front headlock series, but he seems like a guy who's going to have to get his work done early, or he's going to really have a long night at the office. And I think Jared Gooden might be a little bit more consistent, be able to put in the work. I just don't know how much I could trust him here on short notice. Also, his chin's a little bit suspect in his own right. So for me, this is a fight I'm probably going to be staying away from. There's a lot of unknown elements and variables here, especially with the short notice nature. So probably going to let this one pass me by. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I'm just glad I didn't bet the original bout, the Nurmagomedov, because I hate it when that shit happens, man. You tape a fight and then it gets cancelled. I don't mind Gooden here, man. Going back to what you just said, I know that Harris got TKO'd by, the guy who just fought. Who was it?
Shavkat.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good look, man, because I don't think that guy's got hands. I think he's a grappler, primarily. So I think that fight was grappler v grappler, and Harris couldn't get his way, so he got TKO'd. And I think it's similar here, man. I think Gooden has got good takedown defense. He's got good BJJ. So I think he can negate whatever Harris is going to throw at him. And I think he's live for a TKO. So I definitely don't mind the dog spot in this bout. And I just need to look at it a little bit more, and I might make a play, man.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Carlston Harris, he's a pretty big welterweight. He normally has a size advantage. Not really going to have that here against Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden's a pretty big fellow himself. I think he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. He's the younger guy by 6 years. So at plus 250, a former UFC fighter gets the call back. Motivation spot, all-time high. He basically knows this is a put-up or shut-up spot for him. So I think Jared Gooden very live in this spot, but it's a dog or pass situation for me. Carlston Harris at minus 300 at 35 years of age, coming off a knockout loss. I don't like those things. His wins prior to this against Aguilera and things like that, those are guys I kind of expect him to beat. So for me, that's a real problem. In terms of how I cap him moving forward, this is not a guy that I would expect him to be minus 300 against. I think it's a lot closer of a matchup. I was actually a little bit surprised when I just popped over. The line movement on this has been steady. It opened up at a much more reasonable number, I believe, minus 275. Then there was some buyback, went to minus 260, and now it's shot down to minus 300 on BetOnline. So very interesting in the first fight of the night here. But like we mentioned, some interesting elements, short notice there. So I want to watch weigh-in, see if Jared Gooden shows up on the weight. I think that's an important consideration as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the so I was just going to say, I'm sure it's the late notice that's driving the line, because I can't see what else it could be. Harris is limited in his skill set. We know he wants to grapple. That's his win condition. So yeah, you're right, man. Let's see what they look like on the scales and maybe place a bet.
Absolutely. Next up, we've got Tyson Nam taking on Bruno Silva, and Tyson Nam been a little bit more recently active of these two gentlemen. Bruno Silva's got the longest layoff on the card. If you guys follow me on Twitter at Liam Picks Fights, I tweeted that out earlier this week. Coming back here a little over 2 years of a layoff. But when you look at the camp that he's training out of, Fight Ready, the people that he surrounds himself with, a lot to like on the Bruno Silva side. He's also the much younger athlete here, coming off 2 knockout wins. But when you peel back the layers there, pretty much set up spots, set up opportunities, pretty easy fights for him to win, get his career back on track. Started out with a couple losses against tougher competition. And, when you talk about 135 and 125, it's pretty stacked with talent. So I think that Tyson Nam, the thing that I can't really get behind here is he's 39 years of age in this division. That normally does not work out well. When it does work out well, it doesn't work out well for long. I like this. We got some insight from a man who knows Jared Gooden well. Half the battle, Dan Levy. Guys, shout out to an OG in the space. Go follow him if you don't already. I'm sure you do. Jared's probably going to miss weight because he's huge. That's what I'm saying. He's in shape, though. I like that. Stays in the gym year round. So all things that we like to hear, again, when we're talking about a plus 250 underdog to start off the night. The UFC don't mind when things start off with a bang, gets the night rolling. And Jared Gooden, a guy who's coming in fighting for that opportunity. So, especially like my man says, if he misses weight, what do you have to do? You got to win to stick around. And I think that he's going to be coming for the win. So that's an interesting note. But back to this fight, we've got Tyson Nam. He looked great in his last fight. What could you say otherwise? He looked sharp. He hasn't been knocked out in a while. If you just look at his resume, it looks like, wow, this guy gets knocked out all the time. I think it was 2013, the last time he got knocked out in a cage fight. But it's always going to be around the corner, right? It can always happen again. And I think when the UFC put this together, they're like, Bruno, go take this guy out of here. And I think that that's what's going to happen. So I like Bruno Silva. I'm a little bit concerned that he might feel his way back into the division a little bit. He likes to go for takedowns in the past. This would be a good opponent to test that out against again. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went that route. But moreover, I think in recent performances we've seen, he likes to stay on the feet. He likes to throw bombs. And I think that's what he's going to try and do here. And I think that could be a minor cause for concern, but I think he's going to get the job done. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I think Bruno's the side for sure. You mentioned the age on Nam. Just looking at his record, I think he's overachieved in his last few bouts. But, them wins haven't aged well. If we take a look at Jerome Rivera, I think he was getting slept by everybody. The Adeshev guy, he was a complete bum. And Ode Osborne, say no more. So I think Nam's overachieved. I think Silva gets it done, probably a decision. I think the takedowns are going to be the difference. Silva in the bouts that he lost, they was against guys who had decent grappling. They could kind of negate his game a little bit. But yeah, I think Bruno wins this decision, and it's going to be a bit higher volume, and them takedowns are going to make all the difference, man. But yeah, not a fight I'm interested in. Snooze fest to me.
I hear that. I do think, though, our man Tyson Nam might be due for another knockout loss. It's been a long time, 39 years of age. And Bruno, the one thing is, I feel like he looks pretty explosive in terms of his movements, his athleticism. I feel like the speed difference might be huge. Sometimes we see that between these fighters. And Nam looked good last time out, but sometimes people get old overnight. And that's what I'm kind of hoping happens here. And Bruno Silva can find that knockout. I might be looking at that prop if I decide to play this fight. But alas, we can move to the next fight here where we've got actually, let me look at Tapology to confirm the bout order here because best fight odds is never in the right order. Tony Gravely taking on Viktor Henry here. This is a fun fight. Tony Gravely, one of the first MMA bouts I ever saw in person. I was there supporting my friend who was in the co-main event that I had been getting some rounds with. And then we were watching Patchy Mix take on Tony Gravely. And guys, it was one of the fastest fights that I've ever been a part of. Patchy Mix grabbed a hold of that neck, and the fight was over shortly thereafter. So I've had an idea of who Tony Gravely is for a long time. He's a journeyman type of fighter. That doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. He trains with good guys at American Top Team. He does have real skills. I just don't think that he has much fluidity to his game. He throws with a lot of power on the feet. He's gassed himself out before doing so. He also tries to wrestle very intensively throughout the contest. Oftentimes that could lead to him gassing in the later stages and putting himself in vulnerable positions. I think that he's gotten out of some guillotines and stuff from some lower level fighters, and people are now convinced that he's got perfect, defenses. And I'm not buying that. I think that he's improved his submission defense. I think that that's still a hole in his game. And, we've seen how many guys that are better at grappling, better at wrestling, start to fall apart when they get tired, when they get fatigued. I think Victor Henry is a pace monster. Assuncao has a good way of neutralizing everything. Making sure no fight happens at all. He did a great job of doing that against Victor Henry. He hit him with huge shots. He hurt him in that fight. So his counters were perfect. I don't necessarily see that from Tony Gravely. I think he's got some knockout equity in this fight because we did see Victor absorb a lot of shots in his last couple fights. But I think the output way favors Victor Henry in this fight. I think he's active off of his back. I think the catch wrestling style is going to be awful for Tony Gravely to deal with because he's always going to have a threat coming back. And I think that eventually might lead to a submission here. So I like Victor Henry. I think he gets it done inside the distance, and I think he's going to finish Tony Gravely. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd never bet on Tony Gravely in a fight. Not since he fought Anthony Burchuk. He was minus 400, and he pretty much went life and death with him. Put himself in various sub positions. Anthony almost got him out of there. And I always said after that fight, I never bet Tony, even if it's some kind of like intergender fight against Hannah Cyphers. I'd never bet the guy, man. So yeah, I like Henry here. I think Henry's going to put him into some, dodgy sub positions. And I don't mind Henry by sub. If you look on his record, Tony, he's lost by 3-4 times submission. In his fight with that Simon Oliveira guy, he was, getting his guillotine on him multiple times. That was a sweat for the Gravely backers. So yeah, I love the submission prop here. I think it's going to be probably our first finish of the night. And I'm going with Henry, man. How can you not?
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is, though, I think that Victor Henry by knockout is not out of the question here because, Tony Gravely, even in fights where he's like he broke Nate Maness's jaw and then ended up getting knocked out and finished there. Nate Maness, not historically the hugest finisher either. I believe all his other UFC bouts have gone to decision, just off the top of my head. Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I believe that's true. But either way, we've got, in this fight, he's going to have so much of a pace advantage, in my opinion, that if this gets to the third round and Tony Gravely is shooting takedowns that don't get there, he could just punch him, and then the fight's over. You know what I'm saying? Like where somebody is just completely fatigued and exhausted and gets TKO'd that way. That's kind of what I envision here as the two molds of a finish here for Victor Henry, either a pace-based TKO or a submission at some point in transition. So yeah, I like the Victor Henry side here. Pretty short chalk. I think he gets it done. Next up, JJ Aldrich taking on Ariane Lipski. This is a fight that I can't feel supremely good about. On the one hand, I think that JJ Aldrich is a more talented fighter. On the other hand, she's minus 350 best available. It's like there's no real way for me to feel inspired about playing that. Ariane Lipski has looked terrible in her recent performances. I'm not sure what else you could say. The wins that she had haven't aged very well. They've been against poor fighters. When she's stepped up in competition, she's tended to lose and lose decisively. Many TKO losses in round two can be discouraged in her fights and break mentally. Don't like that. But JJ Aldrich can make catastrophic errors that cost her the fight. And those are the kind of things that, potentially Lipski could capitalize on. I mean, in her fight with Erin Blanchfield, I think people were, we talked about this before we picked Erin on the show, but we thought people were getting ahead of themselves with how much success she was having. But it wasn't like she wasn't competing. And she was competing with somebody I think is a title-worthy fighter. in this division. So I think that is the difference. Ariane Lipski doesn't look like she's very competitive when she steps up in competition, but I can't trust JJ Aldrich with my money. If she gets rolling knee barred at some point, I'm not going to be surprised. While she's up, she'll get a 10-8 round in the first and then just get rolling knee barred in the second. I think maybe fight doesn't go to decision here would be my play here. Let me look at what the odds are, because if they're disgusting, I'm not going to play it. But plus 155 on fight doesn't go to decision, plus 175 on the under 2.5. I think both these girls are suspect. I think either one of them could fall apart here mentally and quit in this fight. But I think that skill for skill, I prefer the Aldrich side. What do you think, Rich?
I did want to play Lipski just for the number. But then, you go and watch a bit of tape and you see her getting, dominated on the mat by Shevchenko's little sister, big sister, half sister, whatever, Antonia. You got to go Aldrich, man. I just don't like the number, so I'm not going to play it. And I can't play Aldrich in the distance because she's got no urgency about her, man. We've seen in the Blanchfield fight, she just wants to, stay at range, pop the jab. Just no urgency whatsoever. I don't even know whether she's going to attempt a takedown or the grappling in this fight. I think her IQ is a little bit low. After round 1, if she hasn't initiated any type of wrestling, I might even live bet Lipski. I think on the feet it is pretty even. It's that takedown defense from Lipski that I don't trust at all. No bet from me. It's got to be a pass, man.
Yeah, I think the right number on Aldrich, oh my God. Aldrich by knockout is plus 375. You can keep that, bookmaker. That's disgusting. It's pretty gross. Aldrich by sub is plus 1050.
Yeah, and so it should be.
Yeah, you're right, actually. You're right. I think the TKO is much more live for Aldrich. But I don't know, dude. I just think both these women are just like live to quit.
Yeah, but Aldrich doesn't, overextends like that Brazilian girl, Cachoeira. Cachoeira knocked out Lipski, didn't she? Is that right in her last fight? If I remember right.
Yeah, I think in like the first minute and a half, if I'm remembering correctly, she just walked her down and finished her. Brutal.
That's what I'm saying though. Cachoeira, she throws down, man. She throws heat into every punch. Aldrich isn't like that, man. She's ultra conservative. Just throwing a jab and then that's it.
I know, but the finishing prowess of Montana De La Rosa and Antonina Shevchenko is not something we're normally writing home about, but they're getting it done too. All in round 2. I think if you sprinkle on this fight, just take a little poke on JJ Aldrich round 2, or even, how about this? Fight ends in round 2, because both these women, when they tend to quit, they do it in the second round.
Yeah. Good points, man. You can't hate on that.
Look for that little sprinkle on fight ends in round 2. That'd be a Lambo play for my guy Narco. So shout out Narco in the comments. Appreciate you. Always say it each and every week, guys. Sharpest chat in the game. Just prime examples all around. So appreciate you guys. Rips as well. Thank you for being here. But we can move on from this dumpster fire to the biggest favorite of the night. Pointed this out on Twitter as well, guys, at Liam Picks Fights, talking about the fact that Mario Bautista has the biggest age gap on the card, favoring him. He's the younger fighter here by a significant degree, taking on a 40-year-old here in Guido Cannetti. Has Guido Cannetti been overperforming in recent bouts? Yes, he has been, but the line is running one direction on this fight, I think for pretty good reason. Would I get involved on Mario Bautista at minus 1,000? God, no, because he has been caught before he's been finished. But I think he's much more intentional in his recent bouts about taking the fight to the ground, about pushing his grappling advantage on people instead of standing at distance where he's a little bit less comfortable. He's had some success. He can find knockouts occasionally, but he's also a little bit vulnerable and he can get hurt there. And he's a little bit more stationary, static, can get caught in bad positions. So I think that this is the kind of fight where Bautista is going to come out there and know the assignment. He's going to try and get after this guy. He's going to try and take him down. He's going to try and put him under duress. I think that Guido Cannetti, unless he lands something big like a head kick or something to establish himself in the early going, I think he's just going to be on the back foot, getting taken down here. And I think he's going to gas out faster. I think that in the first or second round, he's going to get submitted here in all likelihood. But I think there's a chance that this just becomes, Mario Bautista, give me that wrist, punch, and the fight's over in the first round. So I also just think that my equity would be more so towards Bautista round 1. I think this is going to be a quick kill for Bautista. I think he's going to get in there, take this guy down, whether it's once, twice with a mat return. He's going to try and finish him, and I think he's going to do it. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, it reminds me of the Bo Nickal situation we had last week. You know, you got a guy who's like minus 2,000, 5,000, whatever it might be, stupid number. So you're obviously looking at props in the distance. And what was Bo? Minus 100 for like the submission, and then plus 250 for the KO. And it's similar here with Mario, man. By the submission, minus 100, KO plus 240. I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm taking the KO. You look at Mario's wins. You know, it's half and half pretty much by the subs and KOs. You're just throwing a coin on it, and at plus 250, I know he's going to finish the fight. Well, I believe he is anyway. Like you said, I think Cannetti has overachieved, and you know his luck is going to run out here. This could even be his retirement fight. So yeah, maybe take the KO.
Dude, and to bolster your point here, if you read the book Fightnomics, he talks about the fact that fighters as they get older are actually much less likely to get submitted. Statistically, they're much more likely to get knocked out. So just from a statistical standpoint, plus 255 is the play, which you can find at some places domestically. So I agree with you. Like my gut lean would be the sub, just like it was with Bo Nickal. But I still had some exposure to Bo Nickal by KO because that was the upside. That's the EV upside. And you know that half those tickets, at least, you're going to throw away, but they're at plus money. So if you win half of them, you're going to, you know, come out handsomely. And on top of that, what did we stress? Or it's certainly, I said it was my favorite play of the card multiple times last week. Bo Nickal in round 1. Why get cute with it? He's going to take this guy down and do whatever he wants to him. So I'm going to get some exposure to the KO because it's the big plus number. But otherwise, I'm not going to get cute at all. And I'm just going to hammer that he's going to get this done early. I think that if you could get a good number on Bautista round 1 or 2, that's what I would look to do because I think he's going to get it done early. Next up, folks. We've got a much more, this is like the Twitter fight of the week. There's always one where people are up in arms. I've seen more tweets about this fight than any other. And even though I put up a poll and everybody was voting for the Merab Dvalishvili fight, they weren't all replying about this fight. But everybody that I've seen tweet without prompting is talking about Seqdriques, Dumas, and Josh Fremd. This is another fight at the middleweight division. High volatility. You got Dumas on the one hand. I believe, let me go back and check my previous bets here, but I believe this is a guy that I looked to fade ever so slightly on the Contender Series, and he was able to get one over on me. So more power to him in that sense of the word. But I also, I was able to cash against Josh Fremd in his last fight. I thought he was at a significant athleticism disadvantage against Tresean Gore. I ended up betting Gore ITD there. I think I had a small amount on Gore money line as well. So for me, this is a spot where it could be a potential buy low on Josh Fremd. We don't know a ton about Dumas. I will say he has the same intangible, which is that he has better athleticism, right? I think he's a much better athlete like Tresean Gore was, but do we know that he could do it for the full 15 minutes, especially when he's facing some resistance? I would not be surprised if Josh is pursuing takedowns in this fight. I think that the guillotine is live. I do think Dumas has pretty good fundamentals, especially when he's on the feet with the guillotine finishing it. But I got to say, I'm not going to trust Dumas in a UFC debut, that's coming in with a lot of hype, with a lot of public support. I can't trust it at this number. So for me, again, this is probably a dog or pass situation. My guy YBB says full send Fremd. WW says Dumas too easy, lemon squeezy. So like I said, bullish opinions on both sides. Rich, what's the final answer for you, brother?
My opinion is Dumas is shit, and I don't get why everyone's betting him, to be honest, especially in his debut. You can do some MMA maths. Dumas won by guillotine in his last fight. Josh lost by guillotine, so obviously Josh is going to lose by guillotine again, but I don't think so. I think these guillotines that Dumas hits are opportunistic. He's just catching guys in them, lower competition as well, like the Dana White Contender Series guy who is a kickboxer. And I know it's a bad look, Josh getting caught in that guillotine by Tresean Gore. But it is just that, man. I think he got caught and he learned his lessons. For him to get guillotined twice now, to get guillotined by Dumas, I just don't see it happening, man. So when you take that away, how is it going to play out? And I don't like what I see from Dumas. I don't like his interviews where he's rolling blunts and like smoking weed's cool, whatever. But, you know, a bit of discipline, you're a fighter. I just don't like to see that, man. I can just see what type of person he is. And I don't think his ceiling's very high in the UFC at all.
Jamal Hill is bringing smoking blunts to the championship level. Everybody's on notice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in terms of fighting, you know, he's low volume. He's kind of like reactive to things instead of proactive. You know, he'll take what you give him, which I don't like to see from Dumas. He can be pushed up on the cage. So really, I think this is Josh's fight to lose, man. You know, I like his record. I liked his Fluffy Hernandez fight. I know he lost that one and he gassed out. You know, the third round was a bad look. But in round 1 and 2, man, he was reversing, getting out of, you know, sub positions and had a decent gas tank on him. So, yeah, I think Josh is the side, man. And I just don't understand the love for this guy, man. Like, what's he done to impress everybody? Like, even take away the guillotine that he hit and the Dana White Contender Series, which wasn't even that impressive to me. Like, what is it that this guy's doing that people are falling in love with? It's just crazy to me. So,
I think he throws pretty fast strikes. You know, he throws pretty fast kicks, but again, I'm not sure what all that means for
on who, bro? On who? Your dad, my dad. 0-1 fighters, 5-8, 1-7.
Fighting in like Island Fights promotion or something, it sounds like a fictional organization. Like if I told you that those fights didn't happen, you would probably believe me. But I think that overall, it's a volatile fight. It's a fight where, you know, maybe because of the athletic advantages, you would give him a -150 tag. But, you know, when you're talking about -200, he's got to win this 65% of the time to break even. I think that that's a big ask in a UFC debut against a guy who's had 2 UFC outings. One of them went the full 15 minutes against a talented guy who's on the cusp of the top 15. So fair play. But yeah, next up, guys. Yep. Oh, no.
So I was just going to say, it's like you say, man, it is a volatile fight. And I'm not planting my flag on Josh Fremd. Like, he could lose this. I'm just simply saying I don't get the love on the other side. And it's like a lot of fights on this card, man. Like this Petrino and this Anton Turkalj guy. Is very volatile. Either guy on any given Sunday could win that fight, man. Well, any given Saturday. So
and yeah, that one's lined to pick him, right?
So exactly.
In this case, it's not quite the same. And again, we're talking about 185, 205, where one slip of the footing, you know, you get caught on the chin, you go to sleep. So I think that's just something to pay attention to. Even really talented fighters can get caught at these weight classes. Much less people that are a little bit lower level. I would say both these guys are a little bit lower level. They're both, less than 15 fights into their pro career. So a lot more room to grow. But yeah, I think that there's a good point to be made that, if you got it at -130, I mean, God bless you. Nothing wrong with that. The market agreed with you. So shout out there. Next up, we've got a fight in the bantamweight division. Raphael Assuncao, the aforementioned, is taking on Davey Grant. I like Davey Grant, man. Just as a person, like I like this guy. I like watching him fight. But he is another guy when we talk about overachievers. I mean, he definitely got on some supplementation at some point in his career, and I support him. He's in his mid-30s. How else is he going to compete with these guys? Bantamweight is an insane division. And he's got, HGH got out the wazoo. Don't sue me, Davey. I'm a big fan. But he is swinging hammers every time. He has absolutely zero regard for defense for the most part. He kind of puts stuff off his shoulders, but he's also willing to just take a clean punch to the face. He's been dropped 1,000,000 times, including in his wins. So I always am a little bit worried that the bottom is just going to fall out one day for Davey Grant. I think he's 36 years of age. I think Assuncao just overall projects a little bit, as like a more talented fighter, but he's beyond his prime, right? It's like the last knockout win for Cody Garbrandt. Like Assuncao has some clear red flags, but I thought he showed in the Victor Henry fight. If you give him space to manage a fight, he can still manage a fight and come out the other side and win it, manage it to a comfortable decision. So I would not be surprised at all if Assuncao could take down Davey Grant at will in this fight if he decided to do that. I think he's a more talented wrestler and grappler. I think Davey Grant, people forget that he used to have really suspect wrestling and grappling because it's been a while, but he used to get submitted quite easily in some of these fights. And he's a tough guy. He's always been that, but he really doesn't need to fight. And he's talked about this before. Like, he fights just because he's a crazy bastard. He loves to do it. And I think eventually that kind of motivation wears thin, especially if it's a fight that's not fun. And I've never seen Assuncao have a fight that was fun with anybody. So I think unless Davey Grant knocks him out here, it's probably going to look like an Assuncao fight. He's going to slow it down. He's going to hit him with, more measured counters. And it could be a greasy decision, because I think Davey Grant's going to throw more wild swinging hands and he's going to try and kill him. But I also just have a feeling that Assuncao is going to take him down, threaten with some subs, potentially submit him, by the way, which I think the number is a tiny bit wide there. Seeing how Davey Grant's lost a number of times and given up suspect positions. It's been a while since he faced anybody that wanted to grapple, and I'm not sure that Assuncao is going to do that. He rarely does, but I just think the advantage is there. It's clear, and he's a smart guy. He's a little bit older. Wouldn't be surprised to see him take that path. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, whatever I pick on this fight, people should just bet the opposite, because my Davey Grant betting is absolutely disgusting. I think pretty much every fight I bet on him to get subbed. I certainly did in the Smoker fight, and Smoker had something kind of locked up, if I'm not wrong. I can't really remember too well. But yeah, my betting history on Grant isn't good. I'm fading him again here. I know he's 37 and Assuncao's 40. But in fight years, Davey Grant's really 57. The guys took a lot of damage. That Marlon Vera fight, Yanez, I don't think there was any, it was a split, but I think Yanez won that comfortably. So yeah, like you said, he's overachieved a lot, Davey Grant. I'm kind of happy for him because he's a good guy. I watched him on Tough. He got to the final and he lost there by submission. So yeah, I guess I've got to bet Assuncao and I've got to bet the sub, because if this is the only time that I don't bet it and he gets subbed, I'm going to be pissed off. So yeah, don't take my advice on this fight.
I said it last week about Trevin Jones and Cody Garbrandt. Guys, I went 13 of 14 on picks, and which one did I get wrong? I picked Trevin 5-star Jones. I need him to be a pallbearer at my funeral to let me down just one more time, because I have had 3 tickets up and 3 tickets down on our guy Trevin 5-star Jones. So if Just Win's telling you, this isn't the read for him, you might want to take the same advice. But I agree with him. I think that Assuncao and Assuncao sub are probably the play here. Also, I'm of two minds on this fight, because I could easily see it going the distance in an Assuncao managed decision win. But I could also just as easily see Assuncao getting knocked out cold by Davey Grant, because that's what Davey Grant's win condition is, or Assuncao easily finishing him on the ground. So it makes it hard for me to lean in a totals direction here. My gut says it's not going the distance, but I also I've seen Assuncao manage how many decisions in his career. So I don't want to step in front of a time prop there. But
yeah, a couple of things I will say is he looked great for 40 in his last fight, Assuncao. His gas tank seems to be there still. And if you go and look at his record, man, the people he's been fighting is that who's who of the division, man. These young guns like Ricky Simon, there's no shame there. Ricky Simon's a fucking beast and an awesome wrestler. Cody Garbrandt, Sandhagen, Marlon Moraes before he turned absolutely shit. So Assuncao's been up there, man. And now he gets Davey Grant, not as fast as
they're all young 30-year-olds, to your point. They're all 30, 29, whatever. Yeah. And now he's getting a 36-year-old around his age and age contemporary.
Exactly. Definitely a step down. And I think if you're playing Grant, this is kind of KO or bust for him. And, I know a bit about his personal life with his gyms and stuff. He's from the UK. And I see him on Instagram. I don't know whether the fire is there anymore, man. He's had his resurgence. And I think it's time to simmer down now and get on with running your gym, man. So, yeah, I don't know whether he's got the fire for this fight still, coming over to America and whatnot.
I like it. So we are sticking with the Assuncao side here. Hala Brazil. Also, guys, just keep this in mind, right? They're doing a London card. It's very soon. They didn't put Davey Grant on the London card. They shipped him over here. Yep. I'm walking people through it so they can just think about what the promotion's doing with that. Probably not trying to put him in a position to succeed. Lukasz, Brzeski, taking on Carl Williams at heavyweight. That's what's next. Why is this the prelim headliner? Great question. I think it's to set up the Brzeski side, as a matter of fact, but I'm not sure. Both of these guys don't look like they're long-term A-sides to me. But again, I always pay attention to how the UFC positions these fights, and I'm not sure why this is the featured prelim. You have on the one hand a guy that they're flying over from Poland in Lukasz Brzeski. Probably got jobbed out of his last fight against Martin Buday, but didn't look great in that fight. He threw a lot more volume than Buday, but still was able to get controlled, pinned around the cage. Carl Williams, we just saw what happens when a light heavyweight fights a heavyweight, right? They normally make them look bad, take them down, finish them in the first round. That's what is a potential path for Carl Williams here. Maybe he's just got the much better ground game, but we did see that Brzeski was able to stop some takedowns against Buday. Buday, I believe, is a BJJ brown belt, so I think people might be a little less bullish on fading Brzeski on the ground. I think this is a volatile fight, man. The more I looked into it, the more I was a little bit concerned by the fact that Carl Williams has never won by sub. I thought that would be like a clear path here. Take this guy down and submit him. And he doesn't have any subs on his record. He normally just decisions people, and he holds on to him. He controls them from top position. So he's got a good control style game for winning these fights. And I think that he could definitely potentially apply that here. But we also saw that Brzeski was very active with strikes in his last fight. So from control positions, he might be able to grease one of those, like, I hit you 90 times and you hit me 20 times type of decision. So that's what I'm a little worried about here. What do you think, Rich? I'm basically staying away from this fight for now. My consideration was to play Williams by sub, like I mentioned, but didn't find as much to be bullish about it as I was kind of hoping for when I was investigating. In fact, I would almost lean towards the fight ends by sub, which is a similar number, and it gives the path for Carl Williams. One loss in his career is via sub. I don't think Brzeski is very likely to replicate that, but sometimes people's losses are pathological. I also think it covers Carl getting hurt his first win by sub. What do you think, Rich?
I think Williams wins this all day. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Williams definitely wins. I'd be wary of playing any ITDs because, like you say, Williams, he does like to just lay on top. But I do think he's going to have that wrestling success for sure. I think Brzeski's a bum. You mentioned Buday in his brown belt, black belt. I don't know where he's got them from. But yeah, I think we're going to see some real sticky positions for Brzeski here. Williams is going to take him down and he is going to be flat on his back in this fight. But yeah, laying minus 250 or whatever Williams isn't really my style. I don't really like to play chalk that high. But yeah, maybe it's a parlay piece or something people want to use. But yeah, I think Williams, he gets the takedown success and, wins this one convincingly.
I like the shout. Once again, Dan from Half the Battle says, I called Carl's amateur fights, never thought he would be a UFC fighter. Got to give him credit for putting in the work. Strong, non-credentialed wrestler. And I have to admit, Carl Williams blew my mind, right? Because Jimmy Lawson, I've seen him wrestle in person. One of the guys I could say, I saw a Penn State duel when he was the heavyweight at Rutgers University. So I've seen Jimmy Lawson wrestle. He can wrestle. He can move. And he was made to look bad there. He was made to look terrible. He's also a Tom DeBlas purple belt. So this guy's not just like a bump. He really isn't. Like, he has some credentialing from good people, good institutions that say this guy knows what he's doing. And he got audited 100% by Carl Williams, ATT Atlanta, stand up, put in a great performance there. So that was what turned me onto the Carl Williams side and made me say, wow, this guy's better than I gave him credit for. He's better than I thought. And I didn't think it would translate at heavyweight. And he absolutely dominated a college wrestling heavyweight from D1 in wrestling, in jiu-jitsu, which was supposed to be his selling point. So I do think there was some fraudulent vibes from the Jimmy Lawson side, just a tiny bit. In his previous fights, he had been out-wrestled a tiny bit, but I had still thought that was stuff that he was working out in the training room, working out those glitches. And we didn't see any improvement there. The concerns here, the red flags. Carl is a minus 210 favorite. He's 33 years old, making a UFC debut. That's the only concern really on that side. Brzeski is 3 years younger here. But otherwise, I think that Carl, from a stylistic standpoint, does have the advantages. I think he's more likely to get on top. I think he's more likely to dominate with takedowns. I just want to see more volume and more output from him. and some finishing instincts, some meanness in order to justify that kind of price tag. But this is a good data gathering fight for me. And I think that if I was to take a play, like I mentioned, be the upside on the sub because he's never gotten it before. So you need proof of concept before the line starts to come down. And I think this is the kind of fight where he might be able to get it, and he might be more intentional about it. It does show on his Instagram he's been working on his grappling game. I just don't think he works in the gi or anything traditional. I think it's all MMA centric, and that's why it's very effective.
One thing that
please go ahead.
One thing that might go for you for Williams getting his finish is obviously this Brzeski guy was on the supplements. That's why his Potter fight was a no contest. So I expect him to be clean now. I think he's really thankful he just didn't get cut from the UFC. So I expect him to be clean and looking like shit. And I think he was looking like shit in that Bidet fight. But Bidet's that much of a bum. He looked even shitter. So I think this is a setup for Williams. I think with them takedowns, him on his back, I think he could gas to the point where he's just cooked, man. And Williams gets like a TKO, a Dada 5000 fucking Kimbo type of fight. Where this Lukasz guy is literally just fucked come round two.
Winner via cardiac arrest. That was actually what happened with Duplessis and Brunson. And I think people don't understand that, but love my guy DB. But at the end of the second round, at this point in his career, my man is in cardiac arrest. He throws too hard. He does too much. He wrestles too hard. But wanted to just say, as we trick over to the main card here, guys, 2 takedowns for Williams on Prize Picks. If you guys are looking to get involved, I think that's a pretty decent line. I think he's certainly going to get 2 takedowns here, unless it ends in the first round. So that would be the only concern with that play. But yeah, I do like Williams over 2 takedowns on Prize Picks. If you guys are looking to get involved, promo code Liam, they'll deposit match you 100% up to $100. All the information you need is in that description box right below us talking. Guys, if you guys like anything particular from Prize Picks, drop that in the comment section below, and I'll give you my feedback as well. But next up, guys, we're starting the main card. I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights on the main card this week because Krylov and Span got moved on short notice. So all to our benefit, guys. Another fight to break down here. And we're going to start with Vitor Petrino taking on Anton Turkalj. And, oh boy, this is a weird fight because on the one hand, Vitor Petrino has never beaten a good fighter. He beat Gadzimurad Antigulov, I believe, on his regional scene. He beat the same guy twice. What the heck's that guy's name? The LFA guy, Bellato. He beat Bellato twice by knockout. So he's really not proven that he's a super high-level fighter as far as I'm concerned. What he's shown is he throws hammers. He has real power. He's a good-looking guy. He's the kind of guy that the UFC does not mind trying to build behind. Think of Apollo Costa. Think of these kind of guys. But I think on the other side, you've got a European in Anton Turkalj, who is also pretty talented, who is also dynamic, who's got a fun sizzle reel, right? They can put together all the highlights of him knocking out these guys, spinning back fist, runs out of the cage. He's fun. He's an entertainer. He likes to go out there and put on a show. I think there is a chance he gets absolutely flatlined in this fight because Petrino throws hammers in round 1. He swings with everything he's got, and he sets his feet. So he's really trying to hurt people. However, I thought he was absolutely having a cardio dump at the 3.5-minute point of his last fight. He got dropped by Bellato, who's a grappler. He had his back taken by Bellato standing. And I think that all those things are a huge concern. When I have seen, Turkalj get hit cleanly on the face, get put in bad situations, get taken down, and work back up to his feet, take the rest of the round off, like do things to manage the fight, and then come out in round 2 and get the finish. So I feel like Petrino, his ground and pound is vicious. So Turkalj does not want to end up on bottoming guard in this fight in the first round. But if he can extend this fight to the second round, I think it's going to look easy. I think he's going to absolutely have a man who looks drunk in front of him. Petrino's got those big show muscles. I do not think he has go muscles to go the full 15. When you look at his knockouts in round 2, they're normally pretty early on in the round. I thought that Bellato was ready to fall over with a gust of wind, much less another punch to the head. So the one thing I will say is he does a good job of investing in body work. Turkalj is going to have a reach advantage. He's going to have a height advantage here, but that opens up the torso. So a guy who's throwing big punches to the body, he could find a body shot knockout here as well as hitting to the head. And he could slow him down theoretically by landing some hard body work early, sap some of the energy from Turkalj. The one thing that concerns me about this fight, Glenbot is pointing out what should be apparent to everybody, which is under 2.5 in 9 of their last 10. Basically you combine their last 5 fights, 9 of the last 10 for both these guys have ended in under 2.5 rounds. Look at the reverse line movement on the fight to end, inside the distance. It opened at like -400. And I don't know if somebody really sharp is just hammering, goes to decision, or if there's something in the market that's moving this number. So that's really what's concerning me about this fight from a betting standpoint. But I got to side with Turkalj here. I think he gets the win. I think despite being slightly less athletic, he's better at managing fights. I trust him a little bit more if this fight goes deeper, and the ABCs say always bet on cardio. So I like Turkalj here to get it done. And I did actually place a bet on him to win by sub +750. Thought that was a wide line, man. I think that when you look at Petrino's game, he was in a rear naked choke in his last fight. He was nearly submitted. He's been in some tough situations. And I've, again, seen Turkalj in bad spots underneath better athletes survive and then come out in the second round. All it took was one takedown. The guy goes to stand up, back take, and the fight's over shortly thereafter. I think he has better mechanics on top than Bellato even, based on what I saw last fight. So I like Turkalj to get this done. I think that we feel differently here. What do you got?
Yeah, we're different, man. I'm going for Vitor by KO, man. Yeah, pretty much what you said, innit? I can't add anything else. I think my guy's going to knock your guy out, or I'm going to gas, and you'll probably get either a ground and pound finish or a submission in round 2 or 3. But yeah, fight doesn't go the distance. Seems very likely here. But yeah, I'm going for Petrino, man. I think he's got that steroid one-touch death like Ngannou, Davison Figueiredo type power.
My absolute fear is that Turkalj is facing the wrong direction after a failed spinning back fist and gets knocked out. That is like the vision dancing in my head. So I think if you want to hedge a little bit here, +430, guys, on Petrino round 1. I mean, how wrong could you be? Most of his wins are in the first round. I believe Turkalj got finished in the first round in his last fight off the top of my head, but gave up 3 takedowns there. Why do they keep having him fight Brazilians? That's the other thing I'm wondering. They've had him fight 2 Brazilians in a row. This is the 3rd one. And I think that WW makes a valid point here. Turkalj got a chin on him. Dana White Contender Series Brazilian couldn't KO him. I didn't think that guy was that great, but fair point. Gives me extreme confidence in Turkalj in this matchup. Extreme confidence, I think, would be very aggressive, but shout out to Dan Hamilton here. Says -165 ITD. Don't hate that look either. I think that that's a really smart way to play this fight. Hey, why get cute and try and figure out who's going to win? Think somebody's going to get finished here. I think we've got a potential gas on one side and get finished. I think we've got both guys have a path to finishing in the first round. If Turkalj just takes us back in the first round, I think he finishes him. I think that if Petrino lands one huge punch in the first round, he could finish. And Bellato took some shots in that fight, by the way, in order to stay in there till round 2. He was getting rocked all over the place in the first round. So Petrino comes out with violent intentions. I like the fight not to go the distance. All the red flags already being addressed. Next up, Said Nurmagomedov taking on Jonathan Martinez. And I talked about it in my breakdown for Roto Grinders. I got to do a little victory lap on the fact that I said Said Nurmagomedov has one of the best ninja chokes I've ever seen in the UFC. And then he goes out and hits another one. So this guy is very talented at that one maneuver. When you talk about how guys go for takedown defense, I think that the MMA meta of going for the guillotine and guard pulling is pretty stupid, right? Because if you guard pull and it doesn't work, now I'm stuck underneath and bottom. Terrible MMA decision. However, if I go for the ninja choke, it gives me more options. It gives me more escape routes. If stuff starts to go sideways, I could reach for a switch. I could try and wrestle my way out of it because my hands are still free and I haven't submitted myself to being on the bottom. So I think that it is a really smart tactical decision. He makes people pay for trying to grapple him too aggressively. That's not Jonathan Martinez. So now we've got to think about what's this fight going to look like. I think that more often than not, this fight's going to take place at kicking range. That becomes a tricky fight for me to say Said Nurmagomedov is a massive favorite. However, I think that people are also getting very bullish on the Jonathan Martinez side. A lot of sharp guys, by the way, bullish on the Jonathan Martinez side. But we're forgetting that Davey Grant put this guy in a body bag in the second round. Like Davey Grant, we're talking about, might lose to a 40-year-old, might get submitted, might have some volatility. And yet Jonathan Martinez got finished by him in devastating fashion, absolutely flatline. So I think that I don't want to get too bullish on either side in this fight. I think that Said Nurmagomedov at the significant chalk is something I don't love, but I think he has a pretty decent chance of finishing Martinez here. I think he's dangerous on the feet. I think he has attacks that can put people out and hurt them. And I think that he is dangerous from kicking range in the same way that Martinez is. I also think that if anybody is to get takedowns and grappling success in this fight, I expect it to be Said Nurmagomedov. And I do think he's the more dangerous grappler here. So for those reasons, I have to lean with Said. I think he gets the job done. But I haven't bet on this. Fight. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, sorry guys, I don't have an in-depth breakdown for this one, but my head tells me that Nurmagomedov wins by decision. No rhyme or reason. It just doesn't feel right to me that Martinez wins this. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much grappling involved, but I just think Said does a bit more. Maybe pushes him up against the cage a little bit, but I think it primarily stands on the feet for the 3 rounds. And I just think Said does a little bit more, man. Maybe a split decision, but I just can't see Martinez winning, man. But yeah, no rhyme or reason. Not really a fight I'm interested in. There's some other ones later on the card I like.
I feel that for sure. And the one thing I just wanted to go over was the prop market here for 1 second on this fight. Of course, Best Fight Odds is giving me a hard time here. Best available prices for Nurmagomedov finishes plus 370 on the knockout, plus 525 on the sub. Really just not a ton of meat on the bone there in terms of digging into those props. You can get Martinez by decision as high as plus 400 and plus 170 on the Nurmagomedov decision. So if you're of the mind, like Rich, that this fight's going the distance, you could potentially find some value going that way. The fight goes to decision is only minus 136 chalk, doesn't go, is at slight plus money here. So very interesting fight. 2 Cents says Said's beating this guy. What he going to do? I mean, Martinez is good from kicking range. I do think he's pretty talented. He might try and unload those leg kicks early. And also Moyes talking about landing more head strikes. The fighter with defensive striking and defense will win. All right, very interesting. I like it. Now we got the chat going very lively here. So appreciate you guys. And a fight that feels a little out of place on the main card is up next. We've got Ricardo Ramos taking on Austin Lingo. And Lingo's kind of taken some time off here as well. Been a little while since he's been in the octagon. Got 2 wins in a row. I believe one as an underdog. I bet on him in both those performances. I believe he was minus 180 against, who was that? Kilburn. And I mean, I thought that was a layup spot. I do not think very highly of Jacob Kilburn as a UFC level fighter. And then Luis Saldana, he's a guy who's very hard to get a read on in the UFC. He's shown some power, but he's also made a ton of horrendous decisions. So I don't know exactly how to rate those wins for Austin Lingo. They don't really tell me a lot about his potential. Losing to Yusuf Zalal is an extreme concern because Yusuf Zalal has never beaten anybody in the UFC. And I like Yusuf. I think he's a talented fighter, but like the guy just the numbers don't show that Yusuf Zalal is a very winning UFC fighter over time. So those are real concerns for me. But what did we see from Lingo prior to getting to the UFC? A lot more finishes, a lot more, dynamism to his game. We haven't really seen that lately. And he is coming out of Fortis MMA. So that's the one thing that really is a feather in his cap. He's training with good fighters. He's around the right people. But this is not an easy fight here. Ricardo Ramos should have the ground advantage. I think that's where, he's going to want to take this fight. That's where he's going to be more likely to win. But I think that Austin Lingo by knockout in round 1 is not the worst way to play this fight. When you look at how Ramos loses, he tends to get caught early. I don't hate that look because Lingo, like I said, prior to getting to the UFC, that was how he was winning some of his fights. And I do think he throws with bad intentions. I think he's a little bit of a cleaner boxer than somebody like Ramos. So I think that Ramos, he's got some decent kicks. He should be the better grappler here, but he's always giving me some fraudulent vibes. I think that you like the Ramos side a lot more than I do, so I'll let you make the case for him. Cheers.
Yeah, I'm betting Ramos here. I'm betting him by submission. I really like this spot for him. Might take some IDT too, just to cover it. But I think Lingo is a complete bum, man. And what I'm curious about is why is Lingo on the main card? If you go and look at his other bouts that he's had in the UFC, he's a prelim opener, second fight of the night on the cards. The only time he was in a a pay-per-view card was against Zalal in his debut. And I think the UFC figured out what they had with him there and then just started putting him on the opening prelims. Jacob Kilburn, Luis Saldana in the third round had his hands on his knees to start the round, man. And Lingo still couldn't get the fucking bum out of there. So, yeah, I'm not high on Lingo at all. His skill set, the takedowns come after round one. They even come in round one, but he puts up a little bit more resistance. In round two, he's going to have no takedown defense. Ramos is going to have his way with him. Like Liam said, you just have to be cautious that Ramos doesn't do stupid spinning shit, not hit it and then get fucking taken out of there in round one. But I think that is very low percentage. I think Lingo's shown that he's a bum. I think round 2 and 3, it's going to be all Ramos. I've checked the interviews. Ramos reckons he's taking him down. He's hunting the submission, so that's good to hear too. And he fights square on, Lingo, as well. He tries to pressure people, but he's literally square on, ready to give up takedowns all day. So I think this is an excellent spot here for Ramos to get a submission finish, man. And he's due one too.
I feel you. All right, next up, we've got Nikita Krylov taking on Ryan Spann. I don't feel any better about this fight having 2 extra weeks to think about it. Now we're competing at 215 pounds, I believe, here, catchweight bout.
Yeah.
I actually missed, I saw a video labeled Ryan Spann explains why fight will be at 215 pounds, and I didn't get a chance to watch it. So I'm going to go back and circle back around to that. Curious why they moved the weight here. Probably just because Ryan had already planned a weight cut, then started eating again, and now he probably won't be able to make that weight. Your body's not good at rebounding, like lose a bunch of weight, gain it back, lose it. It likes to have some time to process that kind of change. So I think that would probably be the reason why they've elected to do this. But, the more I think about this fight, the more I think somebody is probably getting finished here. The difference is it was a 5-round fight before, and now it's a 3-round fight. And the 5-round nature of the fight, I think, would have made it so both guys would be less willing to put out energy. And I think that now that it's 3 rounds, we might actually get a much more aggressive, active fight, which could lead to more finishing equity. Sometimes 5-round fights pull people into these boring-ass decisions. Think Ankalaev and Thiago Santos. Everybody in the world thought that fight's ending inside the distance, and then it's plus 450 to go to decision, and it goes because they didn't want to engage. They were a little bit tepid. 5 rounds is a long time to be out there. So if you spend it all in round 1 and shit goes sideways, it's a long night at the office. And I think that 3 rounds, these guys are going to come out very aggressive. I think that actually lends itself to the fight ending inside the distance. So I think for all the same reasons we discussed when this was a main event, I think Spann is live to win this fight in round 1. He hits with huge power. He's got big shots that he can land on the feet. He's got an excellent guillotine, but that's what he's got for the most part. He has only recently started doing training camps and like training outside of, when he's supposed to. And we just saw how that went for Cyril Gane and these guys. Like when you're not training full time, when you're not a full-time fighter, could really go sideways for you. The fact that we're not at 205, again, can I trust the cardio the same? This is a guy who's gassed out a bunch of times at 205. Now the 215, maybe that's better for his cardio. Maybe that means he's carrying around more weight and he gets tired faster. So I really don't know what to think of this fight, but I think that somebody's getting finished, and I think that Krylov's very live to win this fight by knockout or submission. I think that for Ryan Spann, I would expect that he probably is more likely to win this fight by sub, just because if he hurts him, he's going to try and lock it in. He's got great length on his arms for creating torque on the guillotine. It's why he's finished so many people with it, from the pros to the amateurs and everything else. So I think that finish is probably going to be my play here. Fight ends inside the distance. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I'm not so high on the finish equity for this fight at all, man. I think it could definitely go the 3 rounds. Obviously, when it was the main event, fight doesn't go the distance. That was a play for me anyway. But here over the 3 rounds, I think this fight's pretty simple. I think Ryan Spann is ITD or bust. If you're going to play him, you might as well play him in the distance. But what I don't like about Krylov is I've seen him fights like the Johnny Walker fight, where he bum rushes people, tries to get an early KO, goes in with a 5-punch flurry. If that doesn't work, he's looking to take you down and find a submission. So it's all about whether Spann's going to give him that submission to me, because my opinion is I don't think Span's going to catch him coming in, and he's not going to hit his guillotine. I think Krylov's a bit too savvy for that. So yeah, if you're looking for a finish, to me, it's all about whether Span is going to give up the submission. You know, is his cardio there? Is he going to quit? Because I fully expect Krylov to just keep taking him down and get top position. And I don't think Span can do much to get back up, man.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The one thing about Krylov is people do talk about the durability, but I think that, you know, he's been hurt on a number of occasions. It's not like he can't be hurt. And Span, that is an attribute for him. He throws with a ton of power. He's very fast as well. But I do think that the more savvy striker, the guy who's got more from kicking range as well. We've talked about before how some fights come down to just who has more skills. Like, think about a fight like William Knight and Marcin Prachnio. One guy knew how to kick. That was the entire fight. He was like, oh, I don't have to do anything else. John Jones was like, oh, if I grab a hold of this guy, I don't have to do anything else. When you have a glaring skill that you can lord over somebody, makes a huge difference. And I think that in this fight, Nikita Krylov's the much better kicker, much more savvy in those ranges. So I think I got to go with Nikita Krylov.
Yeah,
Next up.
That's a good point, though, bro. You're right. Ryan Span, he definitely could put Krylov's lights out. You know, we've seen him TKO Reyes with a fucking jab, so he's definitely got the power to do it. I'm just talking about percentage-wise, you know, 8 times out of 10 who wins this fight, or whatever the stats might be. And I got to lean Krylov, man.
You know what? The other last thing I'll mention on this fight is just that I don't love betting on fights that have been rebooked. We've talked about that before, but the bookmaker is at such an advantage when they get to book all the action, see where everybody's lining up, see where their sharp players are coming in, see how much money is coming in at what time. Then they have all the control. We get some advantages when the bookmaker has to wait and see, like we do, where the sharp play is going to come in. We find discrepancies in the market, this kind of thing. So I think that, you know, this is a volatile fight, and the bookmaker is going to have a much sharper line on this fight than almost any other on the card, because they've now run this fight multiple iterations. They've gotten to see where everybody's going to come in. And by the way, they've kept this line about the same. So they obviously are getting the kind of action that they want on this fight. And to be honest with you, I think it might be an underdog trap. Ryan Span has a lot to like: height, reach, you know, these kind of things that will stand out on paper. Also on a very good recent streak of wins. You know, there's some questionable losses for Krylov over the course of his UFC career, but talking about guys that are coming into their own, showing more skill and ability over time, I do think Krylov, it's fair to say that he's done that. But to your point, he did manage a disgusting decision win over Johnny Walker in a fight that everybody expected him to win by finish. So I think that is a possibility here. And you could find Krylov decision as high as plus 600. Do you know another thing I don't like either? Is I was watching the interviews this week, and the two that stood out for me were Merab and Ryan Span. I don't know what's wrong with them, man, but their IQ seems really low, especially Merab, listening to that guy talk. But yeah, it was a bit concerning listening to Span. Like, he's a bit all over the place. I don't know whether that's how he usually is. I haven't seen much interviews of him. I don't know if anyone in the chat agrees with me and knows what I'm talking about, if you've seen the Ryan Span interview, but he's like fucking about with his wedding ring, trying to be funny, acting a bit of a goof. I just didn't like seeing that from him, man. And then you mentioned, why is this at 215 and not 205? I think, if I remember right, Span was trying to explain it, but he was being very vague, man. So I think maybe it could have come from his side. So I don't know, again, if anyone in the chat's got the reason for that. Yeah, I think he had his Instagram on private for a while and stuff too. He is definitely a strange individual. However, the things that I like to hear from Span, because I remember the interviews before the last fight, he had said, like, I have my own key to the gym now. I'm getting there every day with Cannetti, and we're getting our work in. So that makes me more bullish on his long-term prospects. But, like, again, if your first full training camp is before your second UFC main event or whatever, it's like, that's a real concern for me about your long-term viability. He's a little bit older in the division as is, but he's got a lot of natural gifts. So I think at any point he could slide his way into contention. I just think this is a tough fight against a guy who's skilled in all positions, not that easy to put away. And the only concern I have is that Krylov just puts his head in dumb positions, and that's how you get finished in grappling. So I'll always think it's alive, even against guys that, you know, he's a better grappler summarily than Paul Craig. You see that when they're grappling together until he makes a catastrophic error and it's all over. So when somebody's got attributes and somebody else is capable of making catastrophic errors, that's why I think it's live. But yeah, I agree. Krylov deserved favorite here. More paths to victory, a little bit more consistent cardio. So I like the Krylov side after further consideration, but still not a fight that I'm extremely bullish on for the reasons we've mentioned. Next up at 265 pounds, heavyweight clash. Alexander Volkov taking on Alexander Romanov. And these are two guys I've been profitable betting on. I faded the shit out of Romanov in his last fight. Marcin Tybura plus 350. What an absurd number that was. Now, he nearly got finished in the first round. However, you just see what the difference is when somebody's had 10, 15 UFC fights, when they've been around. He was able to stay in the fight, deal with some adversity, and then he was able to come on strong late, win the close rounds down the stretch that mattered, get 2 out of 3, get the win across the finish line. So Marcin Tybura, not a guy I'm normally very bullish on betting, but I thought that he could do enough. He could survive. He would have the better cardio. I think that Volkov is going to have the better cardio in this matchup. You know, that's not something I'm extremely worried about. But what I am worried about is Volkov just getting taken down and flattened in this fight, especially in the early going. Romanov is very big. He's very powerful. He's got good lift, and he can throw people overhead. The one thing I have not liked about Volkov is sometimes when he gets put to the bottom position, he just shows some quit. He's been submitted back in the Bellator days. He got taken down a couple times and he submitted. Curtis Blades doesn't submit anybody. So before you bring up that example, I've been on Curtis Blades by sub. I've been down that road. He don't submit a damn person. He doesn't try to. He's going to either blast you with elbows or he's going to decision you and hold on to you and try and just control. So I feel like somebody like this, Romanov has shown he's going to look for subs when he can find them. He's going to try and be opportunistic. And the way that Aspinall finished that, I mean, Jesus Christ, man, like that shit don't work in grappling class. Like I'll tell you. And Volkov has a brown belt, supposedly. I was like, well, where did they give you that, my brother? Because he got finished with a straight armbar, at heavyweight like that. I found that all pretty crazy. Now, granted, Aspinall, much better athlete, but we don't know really where he projects in the division either because he's been on the sideline, hasn't really fought that much tough competition. But the win over Sergey Spivak certainly has aged better than people would have expected. I think that for Volkov, for me, he's just been too up and down. I've been a little bit nervous because, he looks, I thought, terrible against Marcin Tybura despite winning that fight. Like, I expected him to go out there and clean up Marcin Tybura, absolutely clobber him. And he looked a little bit more lethargic in that spot. He goes out against Aspinall and just laid an egg in London, just absolutely offered no resistance. I was completely stunned. Dan, absolutely right. Guys, drop a like on this right now. We got 115 people rocking with us on Twitter and on YouTube. So guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please get subscribed to the channel. If you haven't dropped a like on the video, go ahead and smash, just like King Kong would, King Kong Romanov coming to try and smash the gourd of one Alexander Volkov. I think one interesting play on this fight could also be the fight ends by knockout. I believe that's going to be at plus money. And I think that if Volkov wins this fight, I'd be pretty surprised if he submitted Romanov. I would not be surprised if he TKO'd him late. Romanov tends to slow down. Marcin Tybura doesn't finish a sandwich. He only finishes Greg Hardy because Greg Hardy's a white belt on the ground. So I think that Romanov could probably do enough if he gets on top to finish with ground and pound, if he's in a good dominant position from early on in the round. I think especially in round 1 when he's fresh, could I imagine him just stepping over 3 times into a crucifix and finishing? Yeah, I really can. But the longer the fight goes, this would for me be like a live entry on Volkov, because I do think the first round of this fight is going to Romanov at a pretty high clip, in my opinion. I don't like what Volkov does to defend takedowns overall. He does a decent enough job digging underhooks, but I think that for a guy that likes throws, that's not enough, because I think Romanov's going to be able to hit stepping trips. I think he's going to be able to pull him in, throw him over, but he might just gas himself doing it. So if you can get a decent entry at the 4-minute mark of the first round and you're like, I could see it, Volkov's going to make it out of the first round, that I think is the time to bet on him. But I do have just visions of him getting flung all over the octagon. He's very tall. He's got a height and reach advantage in this spot. And normally that's a good thing. It could be a good thing if he keeps the jab going, if he keeps the teeps to the body going and keeps this guy away from him. But I just have a feeling Romanov is too strong and too big in the first round to do that. So I think he's going for a ride. It's just a question of, can he survive? And I think that you believe he can, Rich. So tell us why.
Yeah, so I think Romanov loses. I think I'll give Volkov some, a pass for that showing in London against Aspinall. I think he was just off that day. So I'll give him a pass on that. I don't know whether I'm being naive, but I am. I think it's different from Romanov now. You go from fighting Rocky Martinez, Diego Lima, who's usually got a round inside him, Jared Vandera, Chase Sherman, and then you fight a big fucker like Tybura, who's got a bit of grappling. And I think that's what tied him out, man. He's a big unit, Tybura, 6'2", if I'm not mistaken. Volkov, 6'7", looks a bit taller than that to me. But he ain't suplexing Volkov all over the ring, I don't think. So I expect this fight to go much like the Tybura fight. I agree with you. Romanov will have some success in round one. But like I said in the Brunson and Duplessis fight, Brunson can have his wrestling success in round one, but all it's going to do is compromise him more than it is Duplessis. And I think the same here. Let Romanov do his thing in round one. I think it's going to compromise him a lot more than it will Volkov. I think Volkov's got good cardio, good get-ups. He's shown that in the Curtis Blades fight. Obviously, no shaming getting taken down repeatedly by Blades, but he was still getting up in the 4th and 5th round. So yeah, I'm fully on Volkov here, and I think he can do what Tybura couldn't do, because Tybura can't finish shit, is get a finish in round 2 or 3 for Volkov. So yeah, I'm on the Volkov side, man, fully.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me that is ultimately going to keep me off Romanov at chalk is just that you can't bet on a fighter that doesn't have cardio as a chalk favorite. You just can't do that. And as far as I'm concerned, the reason I can't bet on Volkov pre-flop is because I think he's going to lose the first round at a decent clip. So I'm in a little bit of a bind. I'm going to have to give this one more thought. It's a compelling fight, though. I will say at heavyweight, I think that it pits, a pure grappler in a sense, against somebody who is a very talented striker. I said a long time ago, I think in 2021, that I thought the winner of Volkov and Gane was going to challenge for the title and then eventually fight John Jones. So you guys can check the receipts on that. I have them. I retweeted it a couple of days ago. But basically, I've always thought that Volkov was a very high-level guy. He's a very talented fighter. But I feel like he's come to the precipice of the title contention so many times and not gotten there. He's done it in Bellator. He's done it here now in the UFC as well, where he's gotten shut away at the door a couple of times. And I just worry about the motivation. He's a recent father, and I felt like those performances have been a little less inspired. Obviously, the Jairzinho fight was like a free win for him. It felt like, in hindsight, I thought Jairzinho might knock him out because of how bad he looked against Aspinall. So for me, when he's come to Vegas, he's tended to perform pretty well. So a lot of things to like on the Volkov side as an underdog, but he also just seems like the public side this week, because imagine how many people are sour from Romanov blowing that parlay last time, blowing the ticket. He was on the main card. He was in a big spot, big opportunity, and then he fell short. So I just got to shout him out, though, because that Marcin Tybura bet, I had it parlayed with Leon Edwards and what the hell's the guy's name? Jesus. Ange Lusa. They were the 3 underdogs that won that night. I had $14 to win 500 and they all hit. So shout out to those guys. That's the best parlay I've ever hit, personally, from the lowest stakes. So I think that's a good spot. But we've got a compelling main event, so we can move along to that. At 135 pounds, the Battle of Russia and Georgia taking place once again. We've got Petr Yan, No Mercy, taking on Merab, the Machine, Dvalishvili, and New York is in the building once again. I mentioned last week the New York boys going to teach you how to wrestle. We got the New York State Championship shirt on. John Jones, New York State champion. Merab, honorary New Yorker, trains with Aljo and the boys, trains at Team Sarah Longo, put out a lot of UFC champions, a lot of credible, talented UFC fighters, ranked fighters. But this is a big step up. This is a big test. For Merab, this is probably the hardest fight of his career, no doubt. Petr Yan, extremely talented, good in every position. But I got to be frank, I thought Petr Yan underperformed his last fight. I thought that I expected better. I thought he was going to beat O'Malley. I thought he was going to do so decisively. I thought he was going to knock out Sean O'Malley because he's a big hitter, because Sean O'Malley hadn't been tested at this level, because he was fighting up for the first time, because he's shown some fragility in the past in terms of injuries and things like that. So what did I learn? Obviously, I underrated O'Malley. right? I think that is a fault of mine. I got to give O'Malley a little bit more credit. He was a better fighter than I expected him to be that night. Overall, he's a good fighter. So he showed himself to be tough that night as well, took some shots, kept coming forward, fought well. I thought that Petr Yan got hurt on a number of occasions in that fight. I thought he took a lot of damage in that fight, and he's taken a lot of damage over the course of his UFC career. He's absorbed some knockdowns in wins. He's gotten outlanded by several opponents. He's gotten outlanded in many rounds as well. So if you just look through the course of his career, he's getting outstruck in various first round, second round against a lot of opponents that you'd think he's much better than. He's not extremely high volume, and Merab Dvalishvili, you'd expect that because of his striking defense that he would get hit more often than he does, but he's so negative as a fighter that he ends up mitigating a lot of damage that he would otherwise take. I also think he's tough as an old leather boot. Like, I think in order to beat Merab Dvalishvili, you're going to have to shut his lights off completely, choke him unconscious. He's tougher than shit. So I think that those are all the pros for Merab. The cons are he's at a skill disadvantage here. Which I think you're going to talk about as well. You know, you talk about Petr Yan, he's extremely technical in the striking. He's obviously much more technical than somebody like Merab Dvalishvili. But I think in the wrestling, he's shown he could get muscled around a little bit. I mean, Aljamain Sterling, he showed that his techniques weren't 100%, you know, if I grab a hold of this guy's leg, I'm taking him down. But when he was fresh early on in that fight and he muscled him around and he decided where he was going, he picked him up, he turned him sideways, he threw him to the ground, took his back, and wrote him out. I don't think that we're going to see that from Merab, especially not in the early going. He's just not that kind of control style grappler. And we have seen Merab gas in the past a little bit in his fights when he was going at a really high pace rate with somebody like Ricky Simone. But I think Ricky Simone presents those kind of unique challenges where he has the wrestling, he has the dynamism. I thought Petr Yan, when he was forced to wrestle last fight against O'Malley, I thought he looked a little bit more tired than we normally see from him. That was a 3-round fight as well, so maybe that was a little different. Yan over 5 rounds has been money, right? He's been absolutely lights out over 5 rounds, except for the Aljo fight in the rematch. The first Aljo fight, he definitely got outlanded there, and he lost the first round, maybe the second round, but it was clear the writing was on the wall that he was taking over the fight. He was keeping a better pace, so he was pacing himself better. But now this is going to be the 3rd time that Sarah Longo has game planned for Petr Yan, and they've beaten him 2 out of the 3 matchups, right? And now we got a question mark. What's going to happen here? The DQ win, take it for whatever it's worth, but that was a error on his part, right? That's a Yan failure to come through for you. If you bet him at -250 and he fucks up your parlay because he throws a knee to the head that he shouldn't have, that is actually on him, right? So yes, we can blame Aljo. We can do whatever, but I'm saying if you're trying to say, can I trust this guy with my dollars, my hard-earned money, and he's throwing away the fight, I'm like, whoa, that's a big red flag. On top of that, 2 split decision losses in a row now. The judges, for whatever reason, that they're not feeling too giddy about giving him this fight. And I think that's a concern. So for me, this has split decision written all over it. This has, I think Yan is live to win this fight by knockout. Let's be very clear about that because he hits very hard. He's extremely intentional with his shots. He does a lot of damage. Merab got lit up against Marlon Moraes in the first round. But what did Merab show me there? He's tough as shit. And by the way, he arguably knocked out Marlon Moraes in the same round, right? He got hit, he got hurt, he's wobbled all over the place. He grabs a hold of him, takes him to the ground and goes, dot, dot, dot. And then Marlon's like looking off into the ceiling, not sure where he's at to end the first round. Like Merab is a marauder. He's extremely tough. And like I said, I think you have to shut his lights off to put him down. So I actually think Merab's going to get this done. I think he's going to outwork him. I think he's going to get the decision, but I don't want to discount Petr Yan. I think he's extremely talented. I think that if he went back to ACB, he'd go back to being the champion, getting bags, getting fair treatment from the judges too. But for whatever reason, I don't think they like this guy. And I don't think they're rooting for him. So I think Merab Dvalishvili gets the job done. The UFC loves Sarah Longo. They always have. I don't know what all that's about, but they put their fighters in a good position. And I think that they know that this is a winnable fight for Merab. It doesn't mean that he can win it every time, but I think that, they wouldn't have put him in this position if they didn't think he had some ancillary skills to get this done. The training room stories are that he's one of the very best in the world, and he's training with the champ. So I like Merab Dvalishvili as a big underdog here, and I'm curious to hear why you like the other side.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that Merab sucks. but he is very, very limited. And this is the first time I've really done like extensive tape on him. I think that he is going to have cardio problems, Merab. From what I've seen, and I'm talking about specifically the Ricky Simon fight and the Frankie Saenz fight. If you see him in round 3, man, he's on autopilot. Like, he's there, he's bouncing around, he's throwing his, leg kicks that ain't doing nothing, and he's, throwing out some jabs and stuff, and he's looking active. But you can tell, like, go and watch him in round 1 and round 2, and then go watch him in round 3 of his fights. He's declining, man. And I really worry about him in this fight when it gets to round 4 and 5, because Jan's going to make you pay for them. It's all right when, you're facing Ricky Simon and he's fucking tired as well in round 3. But I don't think Jan gets tired. And yeah, I don't think he's going to get tired in this fight. So I think Jan rounds 3, 4, and 5 by KO are a good look at big prices. I think Merab's stand-up isn't there. I think obviously he's got the wrestling, but it's grappling that Jan struggles with, not wrestling. You can hit a blast double on him and he'll defend it. And that's what he did with Sterling. He was defending the takedowns. He just wasn't disengaging. And then Sterling, being the, slimy fuck he is, wrapped himself around him and managed to get back control for 4 minutes of the round. And fair play to Sterling.
New York backpacks, baby.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, man. So you can't hate Sterling for that. I hate him for being an actor in the first one and fucking faking the injury to the extent that it was. But in terms of the second fight, fair play to Sterling. He did what he needed to do to win. But yeah, Merab
that's the fight that I think gives people the wrong impression of Petr Yan, because that fight made him look like he was like the best fighter that's ever existed in the UFC, right? Like he was just like, even though he was losing some rounds and some positions, like you could just tell the way he was throwing around Aljo and like making him look bad in the wrestling on the counter. You were like, oh my God, this guy is lights out. And Aljo said, he was like, my neck, I could not grip anything. He's like, I could not grab a hold of him. So when I went for my takedowns and stuff, I wasn't holding any. I'm like trying to like pull it to my chest. And you could see that when you go back and rewatch, you're like, oh my God, Aljo looks terrible in the wrestling. He can't grab a hold of anything. He looks visibly uncomfortable on the feet. So I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, Aljo's telling the truth. This is why I bet Aljo in the rematch, because he's like, I got neck surgery. I feel much better. And I'm going to grab a hold of this guy. The confidence that he was showing before that fight, I was like, holy shit, he's going to win the fight. I feel like Merab is very confident. I feel like he's coming in with the same intentions. And I think he's going to have a lot of the game planning from this guy who is literally coaching him to take his place at 135, dude.
No.
Oh, well, we're just going to agree to disagree on this one, dude, because I'm telling you, I think Merab's coming with a different energy. I do.
Yeah, but you can be at Sarah's, Longo's camp, have the blueprint from Sterling. But if you haven't got the tools to make it work, then you're fucked. Like he can't do what Sterling can do,
but he can do things that Sterling can't as well. So Sterling, if he goes on the feet, he gasses like real like that, because he can't help, like his tick on the feet is that he has to be throwing volume. That's why he was dying against Jan. He's like, oh my God, this guy's so close to me. I have to keep throwing kick, punch, this. And he was gassing. Whereas I think that in this fight, we're not going to see as much of the punching and the kicking from Merab. I think we're going to see takedown attempt as the guy gets back up, punch, go for a takedown. When you see the fight, like I think Volkanovski against Jose Aldo, another guy who is kind of similar to Petr Yan, right? They come up in the same traditions where they like to stand their ground, keep a solid defense, a solid guard, and then throw back in a reactive counter. That's what they love. That's when they get in their rhythm. That's when they're the most dangerous. But what happens when they just get pressed into the fence? They get frustrated. They get pissed off. They're like, I can't fight. I can't do what I want. I'm getting mad. I might start making bad decisions or just checking out mentally. And that was what we saw from Jose Aldo against Volkanovski, where he's just like, yeah, this guy's either going to bust me up or something bad's going to happen. I'm going to hold on to this guy and just wait for this thing to be over. And I think Petr Yan, he talked about after his last fight, he's like, I don't want to be in this company. They don't like me. They don't support me. Now they're putting him in a main event spot. Instead of on a pay-per-view or whatever, promoting him to the utmost, they've got him on a very low-key fight night in between 2 pay-per-view cards. So I don't think this is going to be the most watched or viewed event. Some offshoot casino in Vegas, a little bit more star power on the card, I guess, supporting him. But frankly, like, they're putting him in a position where he's defending his ranking again. He just defended against the number 10 guy, now defended against the number 3 guy in Merab. I don't think that they're doing him any favors. And for me, those are the things that make me think this is Merab being put in a position to kind of claim that ascendancy, where if I think Aljo loses to Cejudo, or if Aljo wins and then says, I'm moving up, I'm leaving the belt behind, I'll never make 135 again. I truly believe that is happening. I don't think Aljo's making 135 again after his next fight because he's huge. And it's going to be very hard for him to continue to make it. He's said it before. And I think that the chances of a weight cut compromising him are only going to continue to increase the more times he does it, which he had said, I want to retire by 30, not keep cutting to 135 at 30. He's been doing it his whole life as a wrestler as well. So for me, I think that he's trying to set the table for his boy. And, Petr Yan, he's taking a lot of damage. Even the Sandhagen fight, he absorbed 100 significant strikes. I would not be surprised if Merab rocked him with a punch. I'm saying it now. I'm saying I think that Yan is better striker, but if he gets rocked by a Merab overhand nonsense right, y'all heard it here first. That's all I'm saying.
I tell you what, I love your narratives. Your narrative's good. That's something to look into. But in terms of skill set, we're on the opposite side. So we'll bring it back next week, and one of us will be bragging, man.
I love it. And I think Yan KO plus 260, not a terrible look. I think that's his best path to victory. Gets the judges out of your way, right? Gets the nice plus money number on a big favorite. And I think that's very live. You watch the Moraes fight, you could see he is not above being knocked out, but he never lost his head in that fight, and he never stopped throwing back. And that was the other thing that gave me some confidence. Sometimes you see guys just shell up, and that will get the fight stopped almost 10 times out of 10. But Merab, for better or worse, he will not let you just tee off for free. He is throwing back punches. He'll run and then turn, stop, plant his feet, and throw back. And he got dropped to his knees, whatever, but he never stopped moving and he never quit. The guy is an absolute take no prisoners attitude. And he's coming to represent Georgia against the big Russian bear. So I believe he's coming to do it. And them New York boys, man, you think I could root against after that John Jones performance? Never. Could not do it. Patchy mix as well coming up down the pipeline. So New York stock on the rise. New Jersey as well. Aaron Blanchfield, stand up. Well, there you have it. We've broken down the whole card, guys. Should be a great event. Honestly, way above average for a UFC fight night. So go ahead, drop your favorite bets, your predictions, your previews, everything that you need in the comment section below. I do read them. I do reply to them as well. Appreciate you guys for your time. 123 people rocking with us live. So good luck on all your wagers, everybody. Rich, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, catch me on Twitter, Just Win Baby. If you want my full bets and breakdowns, sign up to the Patreon, link on Twitter. And sorry I can't give you a definitive bet this week like Blanchfield or Jones or Grasso or whatever. But I guess I like Petr Yan to get it done. I know it's chalky, and if I had to pick a prop, I'd pick Ramos by submission. So take that for what it's worth.
I like it. I'm going maximum upside here. Give me Turkalj by sub and the fight not to go the distance for that fight. So either way, get a little bit of coverage, but I think that Turkalj is going to get the sub there. I think he's going to finish. I think he's got a little bit better cardio. So that's my ABCs. But guys, there you have it. Whole breakdowns in the books. You can find all my information below. You can find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights, constantly doing this stuff. Please, if you haven't already, get subscribed to the channel. Going to be dropping some more content about this fight card coming up in the very near future. So stay tuned for that. God bless you all. Enjoy those fights. And until next time, take care, everybody. We'll see you after UFC Las Vegas.